All right, so welcome back. I'm going to tie a Green Picasse here, and I've got one already tied on a double without the jungle cock eyes, but I'll tie this one with jungle cock eyes. I'm going to make a few substitutions. So what I have here is just a Alec Jackson iron size 7. You can tie it between 2 and 7, 2 and 10, and I'm just going to start my thread right up front, come back into the return. And next we need some jelly rope or vinyl rib, something similar. I'm just going to cut that at an angle, and I'm going to tie this in so that I line this up with the return. And kind of pull a little tight, keeping it on the same trajectory. And we come down to about the hook point. And as I work back, I'm going to tighten it down. And we'll come right up to the front. And what we need to do is actually stretch this out. This is a size small, but you want to stretch this rope and get it a little thinner. You can also heat it up if you need to. You just don't want it too thick. It can be awfully bulky. If you're tying on a bigger hook, you may want the bulkiness, but tying on this size, I don't quite want that bulkiness. And that'll work. There we go. And we're just going to bring this up to our thread. Maybe just short of the thread and back the thread off to tie it off. That's probably pretty good. And I want to tie this off on the top side actually, where the wing's going to be. So since I'm using an 8/0 thread, I'm going to put a couple extra wraps in just to help lock that down and not pop the thread. You could use some bigger thread here if you wanted. I just don't use big thread much anymore. And I'm going to trim that out close. And if you want to, you can glue this part down. Next, we need to put in the underwing, which is green flash. So what I've got here is just some green Flashaboo, and I'm going to put about 4 strands in. So I'm going to double this over. So I'll double this over and make a loop. I'm going to trim the loop, and then I'm just going to take those 2 halves and sneak them directly up underneath my thread. You can have these riding out back as long as you like. Something about like that. That's pretty long. The wing's only going to come to about the bend, so I'll go a little bit past the bend maybe, but I'll cut it at an angle to just kind of give it a taper, and we can maneuver it around a little bit. Next, for the wing, the original wing called for polar bear, and I'm fresh out of polar bear because I can't have polar bear apparently. And so I'm just going to use some olive dyed bucktail. And we want this wing to come just past the bend. So I'm going to set this close, come up. I'm actually going to do an elevated pinch wrap, slide it up underneath, and then just set it down. Pull up. You may have to do this a couple of times to get that wing to set, because you may have some geef in the way like I do. And now we can work back on the original point right about here. That wing should be set pretty good. You can take all these fibers, lift them straight up, and then 45 them to the back. Kind of cut that off at an angle to help lock it down on these hair wings like that. Let me get that guy out of the way. You want to make sure you've got your wing sitting right where you want it before you do this part. That's sitting pretty good. Then I'll just take a drop of super glue and bring it in right on top of everything. Let it seep in and work the thread back and forth just a little bit, trying to alleviate that step that we may have caused. Okay, cool. Next, what you need, the original called for a blue ear pheasant dyed black, is what the pattern called for in the book I have. So I've just got some black rooster. You just want the barbs to come out past the bend, sort of like a spay. And we're only looking for 2 to possibly 3 turns here. So I'm going to go ahead and separate that and get a good tie-in point. And I'm going to fold this to the back and reverse everything. Trim out the stem. And I need to make a little bit of room for my hackle pliers. I already used this same feather on another one, so that's why I don't have a whole lot to grab here. We want to start to double this over. Get everything kind of flowing to the back. And we'll palmer this 2 or 3 times. And tease it out as you go. And again, I'm going to tie this off up top. Do about 3 turns. Pull down, put a few in front. And I want to get close, so I'm going to use my fingernail clippers. And kind of tie this off coming to the back. That's good. So again, I'm going to make a substitution. The original calls for silver pheasant. We're going to run it to about the hook point. Excuse me. So I'm just going to substitute some teal here. The markings are similar. If you don't have silver pheasant or teal, you could use just some mallard flank or something, gadwall or whatever you got. And we don't need a whole lot here either. So now that I've got that tied in, it kind of fell into the wing. But I need to trim this piece out. And I'll get my hackle pliers again. Clip onto the stem. And I really only want the one side, so after I've got that prepped, I'll take out the one side. I just want to leave the side that's going to be kind of facing the stem and allow these feathers or these barbs to flow to the back the best. Sometimes they want to pop open like that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these 2 or 3. And try to keep everything flowing to the back. Make sure you tease it out as you're going around. And again, you only need, when you do it this way, you only need another 2 or 3 turns. You don't want to overdo it here. Just kind of some highlights. I've only actually got a turn in there, so maybe 2 or 3 is too much for you. It probably depends on the size of the fly you're tying. If I was tying something a little bit bigger, I might add a couple more. I don't want to trap those, so we'll go ahead and strip that out. I'm going to fold that stem to the back just to capture it. The more you can capture and forward and reverse, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So now we're going to build our little head. And we can add the jungle cock. On these smaller flies, if you don't have jungle cock, a really good substitute would be like starling. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll place the near side first. And we only need it coming just a little ways in, so I've got some pretty small eyes here for a 7. Let's do a couple of turns. Grab my other one. We'll do the opposite side. That's pretty good. And I'll tie these in coming forward a little bit too. And fold these to the rear as well. I just do that to make sure that they're going to stay in place. If you're tying something fancy, you know, you don't have to necessarily do that if it's for show. But I want to kind of show the, at least what I think is the better way of like a fishing version to do this. And this is a salmon steelhead fly. Comes out of a book I have. And we'll go ahead and give it a wet whip. Glue my thread. That way it takes a lot of the guesswork out for me. Oh. Start that on the back side, but it jumped forward. That's okay. That way it's glued all the way around, all the way to the front. And then just for something a little different, normally I'll use some like UV resin, but here I'm going to use some Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails Extreme Wear. And this stuff works pretty well. You got to be careful if it's really heated up and fairly warm. It will run on you really bad. I didn't realize until recently that they have like a minute dry or 2-minute dry fingernail polish. I've never used it, but I was informed that it works fairly well. And then you can just kind of brush this on a little bit at a time and get the head where you want it to be. I'm not going to overkill it here. I still think UV works the best to get totally perfect heads if that's what you're looking to do. But to add a little something like that, like the fingernail polish, yeah, sure, it takes a few minutes to dry, but it's a little cheaper than the UV, and it works really well. So anyway, there you go. That's called a Green Picasse. And if you liked the video, always appreciate a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share, and join the conversation. Leave me a comment below. If there's something you'd like to see tied, I will tie it if I can help you out. And other than that, as always, everybody, happy tying, take care, and we'll see you next time.